Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Business World Insights. We will be exploring Fintech's place in the growth of cryptocurrency. I am Luz Wendy Noble, Business World's banking reporter who will moderate today's panel. The Statista Global Consumer Survey released earlier this year revealed that the Philippines is the third highest adopter of cryptocurrency, with remittance payments playing a significant role in its widespread use. The country also placed 15th in the Global Crypto Adoption Index by blockchain data analysis firm Chainalysis. As the awareness on cryptocurrency continues to widen, with more investors no longer taking this for granted, we will look into cryptocurrency's place in the Philippine economy in the long run. What roles will fintech play in building and maintaining a secure and sustainable environment for cryptocurrencies in the future for this country? We wouldn't want to make you wait any longer for this very interesting discussion. So let me introduce to you our first speaker. He is the Director of the Technology Risk and Innovation Supervision Department at Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Taking a highly critical and challenging role at that, he heads the department primarily responsible for supervision of technology and cybersecurity risk, including emerging technologies. He continues to spearhead various cybersecurity reforms aimed at enhancing the BSP's cybersecurity oversight and supervision, as well as promoting a secure and cyber resilient financial ecosystem through close coordination and partnerships with industry associations, regulatory counterparts, and other relevant stakeholders. Our first speaker, Mr. Melchor Plabasan. Hi, Director Mel.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Wendy.
Okay, can you give us your opening statement, sir?
Yes, yeah, of course. Yes, again, first and foremost, thank you so much, Business World, for inviting me here, and of course the other organizers for inviting me here in your crypto event. Now, it may sound cliche already, but this pandemic has really fueled consumers, most of us, I think, to be more accustomed to doing financial transactions online. And of course, as the digital ecosystem continues to grow, we expect a steady growth in terms of virtual asset acceptance in the Philippines. As mentioned by Wendy, at present, the general use case seems to be in the form of BAs as either as an investment or a payment and remittance instrument. And for the BSP, I think the increasing adoption of BAs or virtual assets pushes us to continuously enhance our regulatory and supervisory capabilities to appropriately oversee these activities, of course, because they may have impact on the stability and integrity of our financial system. Now, virtual asset service providers, previously known as VCEs or virtual currency exchanges, now VASPs, they of course offer innovative solutions that may address the problems, let's say, on the cost of doing digital payments and remittance. And of course, as well as the broader public policy objective of financial inclusion. And since the BSP espouses, of course, an activity-based approach towards regulation and supervision, fintechs such as BASPs or virtual asset service providers, of course, they are required to obtain the necessary licenses to conduct financial services, but only to the extent that such services fall within the BSP's regulatory perimeter. This is, of course, to ensure that risk associated with fintech activities will be effectively managed without, of course, stifling innovation. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Director Mel. That's very clear for us. So you will look into making it, I think, managing the risk as well as welcoming innovations for cryptocurrency. So a
Yes.
play between the two. Thank you very much for that, Director Mel. So now we've heard from the side of the regulator. So now let's hear someone from the industry. Our second speaker is the founder and chief executive officer of the Philippine Digital Asset Exchange, or PIDAX, a homegrown company with a mission to make finance and investing easy, safe, and accessible to Filipinos by creating an open market for digital assets. Prior to founding FIDAX, he spent his entire career in the financial market, particularly in banking, asset management, trust, and security services as former vice president for the trust department at BusinessWorld. He graduated with an MBA from the Wharton School, and he is also a chartered financial analyst. Let us welcome Mr. Nitzel.
Hi, thank you very much for having me here. I'm very excited to be speaking with you. A little over 10 years ago, this now phenomenon called Bitcoin was born. And back then, there was really not a lot of understanding as to what Bitcoin can do and how Bitcoin can change the world of finance. I myself was in finance back then. And over the past 10 years, we've seen the changes that Bitcoin and now the underlying technology, blockchain technology, has undergone. But this change that we're seeing doesn't is not happening in a vacuum. Change innovation requires the ecosystem to adapt, support structures to be built, and as Director Mel mentioned earlier, supporting regulations. Now, blockchain technology today arguably is still in its nascent stages. We're now using virtual assets or blockchain technology to power cheaper remittances, provide more people the opportunity to earn, whether it's through playing a game or trading and investing. But there's a lot more to come. And because we don't transplant ourselves from the real economy into the digital economy, we need rails and safe access to services in order to do that. We need companies who will strive to innovate responsibly, work with the existing ecosystem, uh, and allow for innovation to actually create value in the real world. And that's what PDAX is trying to do. And I'm very happy to be here today to talk to you a bit more about cryptocurrencies, virtual assets, and how they're affecting the landscape of fintech.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nitschel. That's very clear, right? So cryptocurrency uses that includes remittance, games, trading, and investing. So there's something for everyone in different market segments, right? And especially remittance. This is crucial for the Philippines being one of the biggest remittance recipients in the world. Now, this time we head on to our third speaker. He As an industry manager, he leads the financial services, automotive, and healthcare teams for the Economist Intelligence Unit's Industry Briefing Service. He also writes articles on financial services and energy, among other subjects. He previously led a team of research analysts at Zacks Investment Research India's offices, generating financial research reports and blogs and overseeing daily market alerts and research digests. Prior to that, our speaker was assistant director of the Engineering Exports Promotion Council, which is sponsored by India's Ministry of Commerce and Industry, where he was working with the government and corporations on a number of projects from generating research reports on export markets to building external relations. Let us welcome all the way from India, Mr. Swaroop Gupta.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks for having me here, and very good morning to my co-panelists. This has been, it's been a memorable year for those of us who follow crypto trends. And in November, if you remember, the cryptocurrency market hit market cap of about 3 trillion US dollars. So effectively quadrupled its 2020 year-end value. And this is an unambiguous signal that investors have just got more and more comfortable with established tokens, that is Bitcoin. And this trend has been lifted by networks like Ethereum and Solana, which continue to upgrade their functionality and attract more and more interest. And I'm just going to sort of trying to provide a more global perspective before coming to the Philippines. There's a lot of excitement about the possibilities of decentralized finance and non-fungible tokens. At the same time, Bitcoin, particularly cryptocurrency rather, is hugely volatile. And if you see what happened last Saturday, Bitcoin shed a fifth of its value, probably because of profit taking and macroeconomic concerns. And that was on the back of a volatile week for financial markets, right? Primarily due to concerns over slowing jobs growth in the US, and then of course the emergence of Omicron, which all of us are now dealing with. And also that was somewhat related to the testimony of executives from major crypto firms to a US House committee. So this is the first time that crypto players of that size are testifying before US lawmakers and policymakers all over the world. We've seen, including the Philippine Central Bank, are dealing with the implications of cryptocurrency. But these bouts of volatility aside, there's wide recognition that crypto is here to stay, and it's an asset which derives its value from common recognition by investors, traders, exchanges, and market watchers like myself. And there are some initial indications, perhaps, that there's a positive relationship with rising inflation, and because it doesn't derive its value from real world assets to that extent, or many cryptocurrencies do not. It's a good hedge against inflation, and there is a negative reaction to any stringent regulatory action. But there are some periods of random movement which are difficult to explain. So a possible approach, which I'll come to later, is holding it in a small proportion in a wider portfolio, just like another risky asset. But the one thing that I notice, Philippines, of course, very important for remittances, cryptocurrencies, and it's played a major role there. But over a long-term period, this kind of volatility will probably make them not that relevant for daily transactions. But in the near term, they are making payment systems more efficient. And one reason for that is they allow quick and transparent cross-border transactions. And this is helpful in a number of situations, such as overseas remittances. And this is something that we are seeing in Philippines and other emerging markets. Now, coming specifically to the Philippines, along with Vietnam, as you mentioned before, it's one of the Asian countries which have introduced or trying to introduce regulations which are bringing cryptocurrencies into the financial mainstream. And, they have the highest rates of cryptocurrency usage in Asia, and probably, together just after Nigeria. And the attitude that the Philippine Stock Exchange has taken is commendable, because it thinks that bringing crypto into the regulatory framework is a better idea than having people trade on foreign exchanges. And this is in sharp contrast to the attitudes that we are seeing in China, so outright ban in India, which is probably trying to introduce its own central bank currency. Looking ahead to 2022, it could be a landmark year for crypto, and the tipping point could be the United States' decision to introduce comprehensive, regulation around cryptocurrencies and accord legal status to, cryptocurrencies, greater legal status. And this has been triggered by China's ban, the proliferation of things like NFTs and crypto dollars. And though there's going to be continue to be some short-term volatility, declining yields and falling equity market returns will definitely attract a lot of attention into cryptocurrencies. The other trend that Philippines has witnessed, which is play to earn gaming, that's likely to go global. Blockchain gaming could take off in a big way in the metaverse, and that's another trend that's been triggered by Facebook, which also started off in a certain sense, most of the CBDC projects, with the announcement of its stablecoin project called DM. So, to sum up, cryptocurrency in the longer term will be treated more as an asset rather than as a medium of exchange because of high volatility. But in the short term, it's going to make payment systems more efficient. And 2022 could be a landmark year for crypto if the United States announces comprehensive regulation and more applications grow, one of which is for certainly, blockchain-based gaming.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Swaroop. That's very interesting what you said about cryptocurrency being viewed more of an asset rather than a medium of exchange. I guess that's much in line with how the central bank is viewing it. Like they treat it, we should treat it as a virtual asset rather than a medium of exchange. And also a takeaway is how you said that people are becoming more comfortable because it's becoming a part of life. Like it goes through the games, how it could play in that sense, right? And we're just very interested to see how it will continue to gain traction because there's no way to go but to that direction. Look, coming into 2022. Thank you so much for that. So thank you to our speakers. So we will delve deeper into this very interesting topic. Let's call on again Director Mel from BSP, Mr. Nichal from PIDAX, and again Mr. Gupta from the EIU. Mr. Gupta said this in passing about the play to earn games and their relationship with cryptocurrency. In the Philippines, we know Axie Infinity is very much popular. Like there are already teams and there are bosses and they have scholars at that to play that game. So, what do you think made cryptocurrency more popular in the Philippines, especially this year? Why are consumers and investors taking it more seriously now than ever before? So, this question is for everyone. Let's start with uh, let's start with Mr. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, please.
Yes, of course, I come with a slightly external perspective, so I hope my co-panelists will, excuse me. But essentially, it's been a difficult year for the global economy in general, and this has been a year of widespread unemployment, and in many cases, including in the Philippines, it'll be a while before employment returns to pre-COVID levels. We can see the emergence of new COVID variants, and play to earn gaming offered an opportunity, to several people in the Philippines to as an avenue for earning money. The reason is that you can actually convert these tokens into real world fiat currency, and playing in the metaverse enabled them to get more and more accustomed to the cryptocurrency environment as well as to metaverse gaming. So that's why it has gotten on. But it's heartening to know that the Philippine Central Bank has stepped in and issued, several sort of warnings to people engaging in this kind of playing about the possible downsides and the risks that they undertake when they deal with a universe which they perhaps don't understand completely. At the same time, it's definitely made people more and more comfortable. And as I was saying, this is a trend that's going to become more and more mainstream with the announcement of the metaverse. Facebook's announcement of Meta means that this will become a global phenomenon. As more and more people trade and spend more time working, trading, gaming, in the metaverse, then non-fungible tokens, avatars will become more and more common. And what we see as possibly something of a major phenomenon in the Philippines will actually become quite widespread.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for that outlook. Let's hear from PIDAX, Mr. Michelle, please.
Well, I echo a lot of what Mr. Gupta has said. As the adage goes, necessity is the mother of all invention, or in this case, innovation and adoption. Look, so crypto has been around for a long time. Virtual assets have been around almost 10 years. And there is a very clear necessity for some of the use cases that now virtual assets are supporting, right? Earlier, we talked about how in an environment of global inflation, there's not a lot of asset classes that you could go to protect yourselves against erosion of your purchasing power, right? Now, Bitcoin, to a large extent, is solving that. But not just Bitcoin, and not just in as an inflation hedge. We're also seeing a lot of other cryptocurrencies that can lower the cost of remittance. So why does it cost upwards of 7% for one OFW to transfer money into the Philippines? The answer is not because banks or money changers love to impose fees, but it's because the global payments infrastructure is based on pre-funding, and pre-funding requires a lot of working capital. So that's why it's expensive. Now, crypto is solving that. I suppose over the past couple of years, we saw this explosive rise in crypto adoption, largely because the underlying use cases or the underlying problems that are being solved are already there. It was just supported by the need for people to access new income opportunities, and also supported by regulations coming into play, helping support institutional use. And now we're seeing kind of those two things build a lot of momentum, and I do expect that we're going to see more and more institutional, if not mainstream, adoption from here on out.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Michelle. Now let's hear from BSP. Director Mel, please.
Yeah, I think when I mean the my co-panelists have articulated well. I'll just provide additional inputs. I think we can attribute the growing popularity of not only play to earn tokens but also the mainstream virtual assets to several factors. I think we all agree that this growing digital awareness and tech savviness of Filipinos. You mentioned about Philippines being the third biggest remittance recipient in the world. So it's not only individuals using crypto to remit money, but we have also seen a number of remittance companies now using crypto to facilitate the movement of funds, of course, instead of using the traditional clearing and settlement models available right now. And we have also seen institutional investors as well joining the crypto world, which of course we can somehow attribute to regulatory certainty. So we are one of the first jurisdictions to have adopted a regulatory framework for crypto, and we all agree that the regulations somehow help instill trust in the ecosystem.
All right.
That's all,
Thank
Wendy.
Yeah, thank you, Director Mel. So, my takeaway is that it makes payment systems more efficient, coming from the all of the three speakers. So, it's very interesting where we go from here. This next question is for Director Mel. As
Mm.
mentioned a while ago by Mr. Gupta, so different regulators around the world have different approaches to viewing cryptocurrency, like India's more strict view on it, and China, and then there's the US, which is more lax on it. So I'm wondering, for us with the BSP, where is your direction headed in viewing cryptocurrency or virtual assets at that? And how do we ensure a safe environment in using and trading cryptocurrency? So
Yeah.
what can we do to prevent scams from proliferating, given it's still a financial instrument, so there is also that risk to be managed, of course.
Yeah. Of course, in terms of our direction, I mentioned it a couple of times already that at least for now, the BSP's approach is always open and flexible, but cautious as well. So, and I think one of the key objectives of course, having a regulatory framework is to ensure that crypto players are adapting leading standards and best practices when it comes to, let's say, security and robustness of their crypto operations. Now, we also agree that, I mean, consumer education also plays a key role in preventing scams, right? We have always been strongly advocating for consumers or encouraging consumers to deal only with BSP supervised VASPs to ensure that, of course, their virtual assets are handled by consumer centric businesses, and of course those with sound risk management practices. So I think plus, of course, we always issue reminders. I mean, in terms of managing their exposures, you mentioned about it being a financial instrument, so they have to do the necessary due diligence not only on the instrument or product itself, but on the entity providing it. Observing cybersecurity or cyber hygiene practices is also key. How to protect their digital identity. So all of these are necessary in order to prevent scams and other illicit activities.
All right. That's very clear, Director Mel. So just like BSP, investors and the market should be open and flexible, but also guarding against risks that can come from this innovation. Now, this next question is for Mr. Gupta and Mr. Nichelle. I want to know what is the significance of fintech in light of cryptocurrency adoption in the Philippines, and how has the industry contributed to the growth of crypto adoption in the country? So let's start with Mr. Swaroop this time.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. So the first possible sort of mainstream application that we've seen is definitely remittances. As my co-panelists have mentioned, the cost of remittances is extremely high because of traditional payment rails, which haven't changed in so many years, which control cross-border transactions. And in economies with a large amount of migrant workers, even including India, and large volumes of remittances, particularly from regions like the Middle East, the cost of remittances makes a huge difference. The other issue here is of convenience. So, the very fact that Philippines has done a lot of path-breaking work, including things like crypto ATMs, means that it is easier and easier for people, especially even the not so fortunate, to quickly send and receive these transactions. And along with new age fintech innovators, we've even seen the Western unions of the world, resort to using crypto-based transactions in the remittances space to reduce the cost of transactions and increase the use. So you reduce cost, increase the use case, reduce the time that is needed for such transactions. And in many cases where there are very few earning members, or the earning member of a family is in a different country, remittances are lifelines for many families across the not so fortunate in the emerging world. So that's been the first use case. But we are hoping, at the EIU, that there's going to be more and more use cases for this. Earlier this year, we introduced, or rather, we released a white paper on digital payments called Going Digital, and cross-border payments are definitely one of the major applications that we are seeing. Hopefully, this will normalize the usage of crypto for large populations like the Philippines. And if there are crypto enabled wallets, then ultimately fintech providers will aim to try and upgrade customers to higher value added services. So this is very important for a large population like the Philippines, which has a fairly aggressive mobile penetration rate, but is hugely unbanked. And this is where payment companies have an advantage over traditional banking. At the same time, they will have to undergo a trust barrier. They'll have to overcome that. But if there is enabling regulatory framework, just as was mentioned, then definitely these barriers can be overcome, and a wide variety of services and applications actually opens up. The other major trend that we are seeing across the region is the emergence of the super app. So this is, again, you cannot build a super app without a payment application. And as we can see now with Google Pay, and other payment applications, a payment application is possibly the best way to start. So, for example, we've had different uh, super apps in the region start off in different ways. So Grab, for example, which listed last week, started off as a ride-hailing company, and Carousel, and so on and so forth. But perhaps if you have a payment enabler, then it unlocks rich data which enables cross-selling, upselling, and all these opportunities. So to sum up, it started off with remittances, possibly moved on in the Philippines to play to earn gaming, but if adoption now that adoption has been normalized, it opens up a wide world of opportunities and the emergence of possible super apps which could control the space effectively.
All right, that's very comprehensive, Mr. Gupta. So let's hear from Mr. Nichelle also.
Right. Certainly, cryptocurrencies and fintech are not really mutually exclusive, right? To a large extent, cryptocurrencies are a new technology being used today for financial services. But I would characterize the relationship between the two as largely symbiotic, right? We've seen how much mainstream interest has been uh, 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 rising in the crypto space, and certainly a lot of the fintech companies are leveraging that interest for user adoption. But obviously not just user adoption, because a lot of fintechs do try and facilitate financial services as efficiently and as and more cost effectively than traditional financial institutions. Fintech firms need to be more need to be more innovative, right? And the use of cryptocurrencies are allowing them to facilitate, for example, remittances without having to have a large balance sheet, or facilitate peer-to-peer lending without having to have all the traditional controls that you would need to preserve records, etc. So the relationship with the two is largely symbiotic, in that as more and more people become adopters of fintech applications, they would become more enabled to enter the world of cryptocurrencies, and at the same time, cryptocurrencies are supporting the rise of fintechs by enabling newer and newer services. So certainly very interesting, and I we should expect to see that both will grow because of and alongside each other.
All right. This next question is also related to what you have been discussing a while ago, but let's just maybe delve deeper into that. Like you've mentioned about remittances and for payments. So, just so our audience can know more about it, what services do fintech players currently offer in light of the crypto trend, and what else do you think will be offered in the future? Because right now we're seeing digital art in the form of non fungible tokens. So where are we headed to? I want to know, and maybe everyone can share this time. Miss Director Mel, can we start with you, please?
Yeah, of course, Wendy. So I would just like to clarify that we do not regulate crypto asset or virtual asset itself, but of course,
Mhm.
what we regulate are activities where these crypto assets are used, right? So essentially, our recent regulation articulates that if you are a business that is engaged, that is facilitating, of course, exchange of fiat currency to virtual asset, or vice versa, or VA to BA, or you're facilitating transfer of BAs, or even safekeeping and administration of BAs, then you are required to register with the BSP as BASP. Now, um, while I mean, I'm this services, or this will make, of course, crypto businesses fall within the ambit of our money service business framework. And of course, you mentioned that with this exchange and transfers, of course, and of course the growing adoption of stablecoin, BAs can definitely revolutionize payments and remittance. And of course, since you can speculate, of course, it can be used as an investment outlet. And of course, beyond payment and remittance, I think, and investment probably, they can also be used to raise funds, right? Similar to, let's say, initial coin offering, which is subject to the rules of our SEC. And for other use cases, I think Nichelle and Gupta may also chime in.
All right. Mr. Michelle, would you like
Yeah.
to share your?
Yeah, so certainly. So I had mentioned that financial services is probably the first industry, or the first vertical to be affected by virtual assets. But there's a lot, right? So right now we're seeing payments, but as you had mentioned, there's also digital art. Eventually, the same technology that we use to power digital art could also be used to power music in token form, or movies in token form, and other fan interaction applications, all via smart contracts. And the beauty of using smart contracts for these things is that you could enable things that previously were not possible, right? So, for example, an instant or a fully automated pay per view, where as you play the film, or as you play music, payments get paid to the artist directly. So these are things that we've not seen before in media. But outside of that, there are also applications in real estate where land titles and certificates of ownership are being put in token form, made immutable through the blockchain. We're also seeing applications in the securities space. In fact, the Philippines is one of the world leaders in uh, uh, adoption of blockchain technology in securities. Our Department of Finance and the Bureau of the Treasury have actually already issued four retail treasury bonds that are on the Ethereum blockchain. So certainly there are a lot more opportunities, and I had only just cited three in the interest of time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Michelle. How about your thoughts, Mr. Swaroop?
Yes, of course, very interesting perspectives from Mr. Plavasan and Michelle. The tipping point for blockchain will actually be, the usage of blockchain by central banks and by commercial banks. So, for example, in the US, regulation is tending towards, mandating that only banks registered, with the Federal Reserve and the Securities and Exchange Commission will be able to issue stable coins. So, stable coins, for those very few of our viewers who do not know what it is, special kind of cryptocurrency whose value is tied to that of an actual fiat currency. And also, you have the Swiss central bank ready to work on what they are calling wholesale CBDC, which will essentially make blockchain settlements between commercial banks. So instead of having a retail CBDC, they'll have a wholesale CBDC. One could argue that that already exists, but using blockchain technology and distributed ledger technology, settlements can, be far more efficient, less cost effective, and the accumulation of settlements could absolutely disappear with settlements taking place in real time. So that's the tipping point. I'm just trying to take a different perspective, which opens up a wide
All right.
world of
Thank you,
applications.
Mr. Gupta. Now that we know like the direction of all right. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Now that we have an idea of what is set to happen in this area, what is more to come for us to explore and maybe wait for very soon, let's help our investors and maybe our viewers to maybe gauge why should cryptocurrency be worth considering for them, why is it worth investing one's money to. So this one is for Mr. Nichelle and Mr. Swaroop. So yeah, let's start with Mr. Nichelle this time.
Right. Certainly, I'm happy to share some insight here, being a CFA charter holder and having been an investment professional for many years. But also, as an operator of an exchange, I will say that none of this constitutes investment advice. Yeah, so I think as an investor, it is always wise to think about your investment decisions from a portfolio perspective, right? So, uh, anytime that you look at assets or investment opportunities on a standalone basis, you always run the risk of drying out your portfolio or draining your entire portfolio, right? So, what do we know about cryptocurrencies today? Number one, they're highly volatile, right? Number two, the fundamentals are ambiguous at best, and so fundamental analysis will hardly serve you as you make your investment decisions. And number three, we know that the market is constantly expanding, and the supply of certain cryptocurrencies are limited, right? So, what does that point to? Well, it points to a situation where early adopters could get rewarded because as more entrants come into the space, you would see a lot of demand side, just demand side action. Um, and because cryptocurrencies are very volatile, you could use cryptocurrencies to enhance the risk return profile of your portfolio, right? As you add more volatile instruments that are not correlated to stocks, bonds, or anything else in your portfolio, then you get the benefits of diversification. So certainly there's very strong arguments to be made from a portfolio investing perspective for people to right now at this stage take part in cryptocurrencies.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nichelle. So we learned that although we still see volatility and maybe some ambiguousness with cryptos, it is something worth considering because it's something that could help investors to diversify their portfolio. Now let's hear from Mr. Gupta.
Yes, I more or less agree with what Michelle has been saying, and very sound advice, though of course he claims it's not. Ultimately, it depends on the individual's risk appetite, their age and their earning. And certainly, it's a question of allocating a certain portion of your portfolio. Usually, the global average varies between 2 to 5%, to this, and to understand that there's no fundamental basis that you can depend on. There are certain technical projections, and as I've said, there are certain wide indications. So, higher inflation helps cryptocurrency, and stringent regulatory action deters cryptocurrency. But you should be prepared for wide bouts of volatility as well as phenomenal gains. If you're willing to take that on, and if you're willing to sort of stomach that, because a lot of investing is about your heart and how strong it is, and sort of settle in for the longer term, then definitely you're going to gain from there, no doubt about it.
All right. That's very interesting how Mr. Gupta said it depends on how strong your heart is, and with the average of like 2 to 5% for invested for crypto for global investors on average. So maybe for our viewers, you should gauge how strong your heart is if you're planning to take on crypto. So before we end this discussion, it's been very interesting. I want to take your final thoughts so that our viewers can have something to take away from this discussion as we end. Let's start with Mr. Swarup this time.
Yes, I mean, I think the what I can definitely say is that the efforts of Michelle and the efforts of the Philippine Central Bank are commendable. Cryptos offer a huge world of opportunities, quick and easy payments, innovative financial services, inclusive access to unbanked parts of the world, and all of this has been made possible by the crypto ecosystem. There are some outside challenges like cryptoization in countries like El Salvador, which is used it or said that it's legal tender, and there are certain concerns about the environmental impact of crypto. But countries like Laos are actually doing something about it by ensuring that it's done through hydropower. But probably regulators will come around to a risk based technological neutral approach. So, the higher the level of risk, the more stringent the regulation. And that's what's probably going to happen. And it could help regulators stay ahead of technological developments. Uh, Regulators in the Philippines have taken a measured approach, and they've decided to embrace new technology, which is heartening because it prevents, this kind of technology from being utilized by bad actors, and from the retail investor from making unwise decisions. And there's growing awareness amongst Filipinos, and possibly the tipping point for fintech in general and for crypto will be the national ID project, which I was speaking to Wendy about earlier this year. And that's a digital public good. That's a first mile necessity for an equitable digital world. It will reduce the urban rural divide, which exists in several countries in Asia, and it's going to provide a much needed fillip to fintech penetration and wider adoption of blockchain based applications.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for that insightful outlook. Let's now go to Director Mel from the Central Bank so we know some takeaways from our very own regulator.
Of course. Anyway, thanks again, Wendy. Recent developments particularly in the digital space, have given a lot of us renewed appreciation for digital financial services. And many individuals and even institutions are seizing every opportunity to ride the digital wave. And I think for the crypto players, they need to stay relevant and they need to remain proactive and vigilant in monitoring advancements in technology and of course developing innovative solutions to allow responsive and responsible financial products and services to be accessible to all. And for the BSP, I think we will continue to nurture an ecosystem characterized by, of course, a wide range of players and digital platforms. And we recognize fintechs as strategic partners that, of course, continuously transform access to financial services. And of course, we look forward to continue working with them as we further harness fintech innovations to bring the BSP and its services closer to the people. And we'll definitely press on with our research and capacity building activities, of course, to acquire a better understanding of the landscape. And as we always say, we cannot regulate what we do not understand. Hence, we are and we will continue to be at the forefront of these developments in this digital space. Thanks. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Mel. I'm also looking forward to how cryptocurrency will, make financial inclusion better in the Philippines because we still have a lot of Filipinos that are underserved and underbanked. So let's look into how cryptocurrency will help them as well. So now let's hear from Mr. Michelle for your closing statement, please.
Right. The interesting about innovation in the financial services industry is that for a very long time, it's always come from institutions, right? From the invention of cash to the invention of checks, credit cards, ETFs, mutual funds. Somehow innovation had always come from the institutions, and it was organized being that way that allows for regulators to quickly work with the institutions and understand what these innovations are and put rules around the whole thing. But crypto, virtual assets, and the this emergence of digital assets, these aren't coming from the institutions. This had come from the retail segment. So it's something new in the sense that we are all just trying to learn how to deal with it and how to adapt. Regulators like Director Mel and his team are also learning about the technology and learning about the potential of these technologies as we go along. Companies like PDAX are also trying to constantly figure out how best to use or apply these emerging technologies to today's use cases. So I expect to see a lot more innovations come to the market. Certainly, this is a space that at this point in time, nobody should be ignoring, whether as an investor or as an adopter of new technology.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Nichelle, and we will be very much looking forward to the offerings of PDAX from here on. So again, I would like to thank our esteemed speakers for today for making us more at home with knowing about cryptocurrency, Mr. Swaroop, Mr. Nichelle, and of course, Director Mel. To our partner organizations, we would also like to thank Bank Marketing Association of the Philippines, British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, Management Association of the Philippines, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and to our media partner, of course, the Philippine Star. To everyone who joined us today, thank you so much, and we hope that it has been an insightful discussion for you as well. Be sure to tune in to Business World's social media pages to be updated on our next projects. Again, this is Luz Wendy Noble, and this has been Business World Insights. Good afternoon.